if you're interested in technical education, it's not just black and white, it's gray too. Learn what we're talking about coming up next on Carolina People. For technical and comprehensive education, Dan Gray. Good morning, Dan.
Oh, Greg, nice to see you.
Thank you for coming in.
Good way to have a cup of coffee.
Absolutely, early on a Tuesday morning.
Yes,
of course, Johnny Rockets normally didn't open for breakfast, so it's great to be able to get in here early in the morning.
Yeah, they were nice enough to make a pot of coffee for me.
Absolutely, and you drank almost all of it. You didn't save much for me, but thanks. They're doing a great job in this place. These seats here, and of course the nice little jukebox. It's a sweet setup.
I love Johnny Rockets, and it reminds me of my earlier years, and I love flipping through the music, and I love the entertainment that they provide, and of course the fabulous hamburgers.
Oh yeah. You've been out here before. It's not your first time.
Many times, yeah.
And they've got one up at Barefoot Landing as well. It's very popular.
They're doing well.
Yeah. Recently, I think a football team owner bought the company. They still have the 200 franchisees, but Johnny Rockets has just changed hands. So,
I didn't know that.
Very interesting setup. Real quick about yourself, Dan. Are you originally from the area?
Yes, I was born here in 1941. I got my Medicare card last July. So I'm an OAR, that's older adult / retiree. But I was born here in 41 and grew up here. And my family on my mother's side goes back to sometime in the 1730s in Horry County.
1730s in this county?
Yes.
Wow. Was the county, at that time, have you ever seen maps of it at that time? Was it still, did it follow the PD River there and, as a demarcation line, or was it smaller or even larger back then? Do you know?
Kingston, I believe it was called, was originally an outpost out of Charleston as kind of a sanctuary for people who would attack Charleston. And that's how Kingston, now Conway, was originally established. And no, the lines, the political lines as we see them now, didn't exist at that time.
Oh yeah, that's right. Sure, the 43 or 46 counties in the state wouldn't have seen anything like that.
No, not at all.
But surely there were people living here, and you said the 1730s.
Yeah, most of what we know as Horry County today was settled between the 1730s and the 1750s. That's about as far back as there really any record of permanent residence. And of course, Horry County's growth was very, very slow, right on up until fairly modern times, within, say, the last 50 years.
Right. Oh, it has been, absolutely. And we talked earlier this morning. We want to talk more about that later as we go through the interview about your experiences on the Planning Commission and helping set up the comprehensive plan when we think about growth these days. But, when you think about growing up, did you principally grow up were you born in Conway or were you born here in Myrtle Beach?
Both. My mother was in Myrtle Beach, but the only hospital was in Conway. So technically I was overnighted, so to speak, at the old Conway Hospital in downtown Conway. But I consider myself as having been born in Myrtle Beach. That was just the only place to go. Many people who were born here at that time were born at home. So,
is that right? Sure.
But I grew up on 4th Avenue North in Myrtle Beach, right beside the First Baptist Church parsonage. As a matter of fact, my home, in my growing up years, is still there.
Is that right?
It's owned by the First Baptist Church. It's used as a mission building, and they call it the Gray House.
They call it the Gray House. Yes. I did not know that. Is it behind the church there, or I'm trying to picture it? I know
it would be across 4th Avenue, right from the main sanctuary.
Okay.
And right beside the parsonage. It's sort of across 4th Avenue, right behind.
Sure.
The church.
I think I remember, Dan, in one of our interviews a couple years ago, either when we were out at Horry Georgetown Tech or when we were at Florence, Darlington, up there and right over the county line in Darlington County. I believe you shared with us that growing up, everything was virtually within a four block area.
For me,
right?
It was a time in the late 40s and early 50s when you could just turn your children out and hope they came home, and of course we all did when it started getting dark. But I was 4 miles from the main city center, 4 blocks from the main city center. The schoolhouse was 1 block away where the post office is now.
Right.
And Withers Swash was 4 blocks away. The ocean was a couple of blocks away. It was just a huge playground for me and all of the children in the neighborhood.
Sure. You remember it vividly, Dan.
Oh, yes. I started selling newspapers on the street when I was 10. And,
really?
Yeah, I sold newspapers for 3 years in the summers and had other jobs at grocery stores and so forth.
Did you make pretty good money?
Yeah, I made more money than I could spend. I only got 1.50 cents a paper.
Oh, wow.
The paper was only a nickel.
Right.
And,
but it was a daily.
Well, it was the main paper that we sold was the Charlotte Observer.
Oh, really?
In the morning and the Charlotte News in the afternoon. And on Thursday afternoons, we'd have, I would sell 100 papers a day. And on Thursday afternoons, I had 5 copies of the Myrtle Beach News and 5 copies of the Myrtle Beach Sun. I couldn't give them away.
No.
So I'm sorry to confess this, but I would just take my tips and buy those papers.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah, people were not interested. The papers were separate at that time.
They were interested in the Charlotte News.
Oh, Myrtle Beach could not be where it is today without the Charlotte visitors and surrounding areas, like Gastonia and High Point.
Sure.
But the paper of record in this area at that time was the Charlotte Observer.
That's fascinating. That's one thing I've never heard, Dan. I'm glad you opened that up because
and the Charlotte News.
Right. Sure. And of course, I don't know when it happened that the state newspaper in Columbia and the Charlotte newspaper were owned for a good number of years, maybe mid-'80s owned by Knight Ridder, and of course they then later purchased the Sun News and expanded quite a bit.
All fine papers.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now all owned by McClatchy, who has the Raleigh News and Observer and the Hilton Head paper. They continue to expand and continue to do great things in the community. You know, when you think of it, and did you attend, so you attended school here? Did you go to college in this area, Dan?
I was a student at Clemson. I graduated Clemson in 1963.
Is that right?
Graduated high school in 59.
Right.
Everybody did college in 4 years at that time because that was all the money you were going to get.
That's
4
all
years.
the money you get.
And if you were lucky enough to go to college.
Right.
So I graduated Clemson with a Bachelor of Science degree in industrial management.
Is that right? And did you come home straight after college?
No, my first job was with the Southern Railway System. Now it's Norfolk Southern. You can see their ads on television. They have a Mustang horse train, but that was my first quote-unquote career job, a real job. Of course, at that time, everybody had to deal with their military obligation. We had the Universal Draft. And I had another side job with the United States Marine Corps. So I did college.
Side job.
Well, you have some active duty and reserve duty. Active reserve duty. And but I did college in Marine Corps and my first job with Southern Railway System all in the same time period.
Right, sure.
Right after graduating college, during college.
You know, I wanted to ask you that a second ago, Dan. I'm sorry I didn't. When you're driving around that area around 4th Avenue North now in 2007, and you think back on your youth, are there images that you see that really stand out of your mind when you're in your truck or in your car or driving around? What are some of those images that jump out at you when you're driving around that area?
I do take trips to 4th Avenue. As a matter of fact, I walked out of the First Baptist Church just a few weeks ago and walked over to the Gray House. I walked on the front porch. And, one of my jobs to help out around the house was to rake and mow the yard. At the time, when I was a kid, it seemed like it was a pasture. And now it looks like a postage stamp. And,
wow.
And the house itself is still a fairly large house, but at the time it was, now it seems much smaller. And the certain things are the same. Withers Swash hasn't moved. Atlantic Ocean hasn't moved.
Right.
The the old town center hasn't moved, but the appearance of it is. Wither Squash doesn't exist anymore. It's basically a drainage ditch now.
Right.
And the Atlantic Ocean was mostly beach cottages. Now you get high rises.
Yeah, you're seeing high rises.
Condo Canyon, as they call it.
Sure, we look that way.
And of course, the downtown really needs some redevelopment.
But Broadway was still one of those streets that were within four blocks of your home.
Yeah, Broadway was the road to Conway. 501 didn't exist.
Really?
As in the location as we know it.
Right.
And that went to, I believe it was called they had to cut that through the Impassable Bay, I believe it was called. One of the big Carolina bays that we have. But the general route that we know today from Myrtle Beach to Socastee, then on to Conway, that was the way you went to Conway.
That was the only way you'd get to Conway.
That was on the road in.
Yeah.
And so Broadway was the entrance part into Myrtle Beach.
That's fascinating. And of course, it would still end. It would have kind of a similar ending there, where I guess where 501 is now, or where the train depot is, where it would kind of have its
Well, now
current.
you have an intersection. I think they call it 5 points, but where Broadway meets Main Street, and you run right into the downtown area. Of course, the train depot, which was running at the time,
Yeah.
we're speaking with passenger trains. One of the most memorable reprimands that I have is the time that my cousin and I slipped aboard a passenger train. We just thought we wanted to take a train ride. We were about 5 or 6 years old.
No.
Oh, yeah.
You're
Yeah.
kidding.
Oh, yeah. Of course, the conductor
Quickly
conducted
moved.
us
Yeah.
all to the train in Conway, and my parents came to get us, and then they gave us a good talking to.
Oh, I bet. Probably a little more than that, Dan. You don't have to get into it, but golly, that's something. And you've got even memories of that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, clearly. Wow.
When they were building what's now the First Baptist Church Main Sanctuary, there was a big hoisting rope right in the center of the roof of the church. And we would swing from the balcony down to the vestibule and yell at Tarzan. We would slip over every big playground. Oh, yeah.
Wow, man. You know, obviously, much of our focus has got to be on the South Carolina Technical and Comprehensive Education. Obviously, you've been active in this position for a good while. Have been very supportive. I think your dad was one of the founders of Horry Georgetown Technical College, and instrumental. And did that help set the stage for you, for your interest in the appointment, when the appointment came a few years ago, for you to serve on the state board?
Well, we as a family have always been very interested in Horry Georgetown Tech, and by extension, the State Technical College system.
Right.
And the mission of the State Technical College has always been very important to our family. As you mentioned, my dad, he turned 91 in January.
Is that right?
He was the first chair of Horry Georgetown Tech, and he served in, I think it was 1980 to 88. And that was when Horry Georgetown Tech was opened at that period. And I was involved at Horry Georgetown Tech. I was an instructor out there at night during his first year.
Really?
Yes.
And what years were those again?
I think I recall the Tech opened in 1966. That's right. They just celebrated their 40th anniversary.
Right. 1966. Well, that would have been a critical, of course, when you think about years like that. So you were helping teach out there right in the beginning.
Yeah. Bill Dudley was the first director, and he knew that I was fresh out of college and was involved in the kind of work and had the kind of educational background that at that time they were called technical college centers.
Right.
And or technical centers. And so I taught shop math and drafting and economics.
Is that right?
4 quarters. They were on the quarter system. And finally I said, Bill, you got to let me go. But I did do that the first year out there.
That's great. And of course, they have expanded so much. You think about the expansion of Horry Georgetown, aside from the first congressional district, of which you're very actively serving, and obviously the entire state board, the technical college system has just just rapidly blossomed.
Yeah, we have over 100,000 students in our 16 colleges.
Is that right?
And these are credit students, and then we have another 100 and some odd thousand in continuing ed.
Yeah.
And somebody pointed out that if all the tech students could be in one place, say like the Carolina Clemson game or something like that,
Right.
we would have far more students. We would have more students than all the colleges, four-year colleges in the state of South Carolina.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. We're more than half of the people enrolled in higher education credit classes are in one of our 16 technical colleges. Around the nation, they're known as community colleges.
Sure, that's right.
And so we fill a very important role. Some of our students are transfer students. Most of our students are working towards an associate's degree or some diploma or certificate program related to enhancing their job skills.
Right.
And developing the workforce.
Of course, the name technical education, of course, a lot of folks would potentially be confused by that because it is such a broad educational sphere there, Dan.
Well, as I say, around the nation, the two-year colleges are more generally known as community colleges. And last year, Spartanburg Technical College did change its name to Spartanburg Community College. And I think that will be a trend in the state as we move forward. But the mission is to provide education and training for non-traditional students. Most of our students are about 28 years old.
Is that right, the average age?
Yeah, most of them. The average composite would be a minority female, 28 years old, with a family and facing difficulty challenges as it relates to child care and transportation. And so it's very rewarding to be a part of a system that gives people like that a second chance or even a chance to get the training and education that they need and to improve the quality of their lives.
And the lottery scholarships in the recent past have had a real impact on opening up, and that opens to virtually everyone.
Yes. The lottery tuition assistance program that we have is intended to provide about 75% of the tuition at any of our colleges. And many of our students qualify for other aid, federal Pell Grants, and so forth. We require them to apply for all financial aid that they might be eligible for before we give them the LTA grant. And but that's the way we keep the technical college system afloat largely is through tuition that comes from the lottery program.
Dan, you also serve as an ex officio member for the Horry Georgetown Technical College Foundation, and I guess you may even attend the local commission meetings, or maybe are you a member of that or ex officio member of that as well?
Well, yeah, it's a good point. Well,
wearing a lot of hats,
I kind of jump in with both feet. If I'm asked to do something, I don't do it a little bit. I try to give as much as I can. I'm on the state Tech Foundation board and the local Tech Foundation board. Both of them are ex officio.
Right.
And I do attend the board meetings of Horry Georgetown Tech and Trident Tech down in Charleston. Very large.
Is that
school.
right?
Yeah.
Yes. Is Trident real large? What is it like?
They have about 10,000 students. So
Really?
Horry has about 5,000.
So it really is. And of course, there are 6 state board members, I believe, representing the 6 congressional districts. I noticed on the statetechsystem.com website, or SC Tech System, or SC Tech, I can't remember the fancy, do you know it?
May I ask you a question? Can I press the cough buttons?
Oh, yeah, please, cough away, Dan, absolutely. No, we think about, take your time. No, that's fine. I was trying to think of course, you and the other 5 folks representing the 6 congressional districts are on there, as well as Jim Rex, as an ex officio member, the superintendent of education for the state.
Well, you come well prepared, Greg.
Oh, I think it's sctechsystem.com. A great setup there, and of course, very active.
You visited our webpage. Yeah, we're composed of a board of 10. 6 from each, one each from 6 congressional districts, 4 at large, and then by statute, the Secretary of Commerce and Secretary of Education are also so members. So that gives us 12 members of the state board.
Sure, which is a great group, a tremendous group, and y'all are making a difference. When you think about that many students statewide, as well as that many continuing education students statewide, that's an incredible responsibility as well.
Well, we have oversight responsibilities and leadership and governance issues for over 200,000 students, roughly half or so in continuing ed, and the other 100,000 in credit classes of various kinds.
Dan, real quick, and I'm afraid time's moving faster than I thought. I was thinking about some of your early service activities outside of this now very active service on the South Carolina State Technical and Comprehensive Education Board. How about, have you held any other civic activities? I know you've had one in particular that sticks out in my mind, but share with the viewers what prompted your early service.
I was following the mold that had been set by my parents, really, and other members of our extended family. And we've always had a tradition of trying to give back and try to be involved. Don't always be a taker, be a giver. Do things where you don't necessarily receive any immediate reward other than the satisfaction of knowing that you're providing and being part of the community and trying to make the community better. I started out with all sorts of things. I've been involved with the Chamber of Commerce. I've been involved with the Myrtle Beach Convention Center.
Oh, yeah, I saw one of the active board members early on.
Fame and the Rotary Club, and spent 10 years in workforce development with the State Workforce Development Board.
I saw that and got a big award from them statewide. Yeah, for Volunteer of the Year maybe in the mid-90s.
So I've always... I was on the County Planning Commission for 22 years.
22 years, golly.
Charter member, helped start what we now have today as our County Planning Commission. And so I'm probably leaving out a few, but that's enough. It gets kind of boring after a while to read all that.
Did you ever think about running for office, Dan?
I've run for office, but I've never been successful. I'm not as good at politicking for votes as I am at just saying, here am I, how can I help?
Right. Which are great words, albeit that has not been the case necessarily for some of your children. I know one of them in particular we think about who's had an active and long service on the Myrtle Beach City Council.
Wayne. Of course, you're referring to Wayne.
Yeah.
Wayne is... He's had some successes in politics, and he's had some setbacks, but he currently serves on the city council doing a wonderful job.
Absolutely. You've got other kids here in the area, Dan.
My oldest son, Danny, is a manager of one of the Springhouse restaurants here. And my son, Roger, is principal of Myrtle Beach Middle School. And Danette works in marketing for the Springhouse Restaurant Group.
That's tremendous. All staying very active, and Springhouse is a wonderful extension.
Thank you.
Having everyone there, and of course, so great seeing you and Denise last weekend out at the Hardball, which was a great testament here in the community. And part of the thrill of getting you in was the opportunity to highlight so much of what you're active in. And of course, the Technical Education Board has really had its tentacles out throughout the state and impacting folks on a daily basis.
Well, it is a labor of love, and it really is inspiring to know that in a small way, I and my colleagues on the state board have a little bit of a role to play in really improving the quality of the lives of young people and older adults, and also to provide for workforce development in our state. That's a big element of what we do. A big part of the state tech system is to provide economic development through workforce education and training. And so that's a very large part of what we do, both in establishing new industries and helping existing industry grow, as well as providing continuing and follow-up education and training. Very much involved in the BMW plant.
Oh, yeah.
Now down in Charleston, a new Dreamliner, the new project for Boeing. We're providing all the job training for that. And it'll reach Georgetown County, the new plant to make wallboard. We're going to be doing the training for that down there in Georgetown County.
That's tremendous, Dan. Well, I want you to know I've got 9 other questions that I want to get to, but I've got less than 9 seconds, so we're going to have to do this another time. Thanks so much for being with us this morning. Sorry about the cough there. We should have given you more water, maybe some more coffee. Johnny Rockets is the place. We're visiting with Dan Gray. Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. You know, we didn't get to talk to Dan about being the chairman of the founding chairman, the first chairman of the North-South All-Star Football Committee, but we did get to hear him talk about selling those Charlotte Observers. Was it in the morning and the Charlotte News in the afternoon? That was a penny and a half for paper. That was probably pretty dang good money over the course of time. We didn't get to talk to him about his first childhood job, but we got to hear him talk about that excitement and that reprimand at age 5 or 6 of getting on the train, heading up to Conway. You know, there's so many things that happen over life. We think about those now, 65 years and getting the Medicare card, but a lot goes on even today. We didn't get to hear that great line that I've heard so many times: education is in the gray blood. I think you'd see it if you spent a few minutes with Dan. Hopefully you saw a little bit of it this morning. Dan Gray.